Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for holding this hearing on the President's fiscal year 2012 budget request for the Environmental Protection Agency. Today marks the first of two planned hearings to review the budgets and priorities of the agencies under the jurisdiction of the Subcommittee on Water Resources and the Environment. These hearings provide a valuable opportunity for our new and returning members to learn the breadth of this subcommittee's jurisdiction over several executive branch departments and agencies, and I look forward to working with the Chairman to hear firsthand from the other agencies within our jurisdiction during these planned hearings. Mr. Chairman, all of us recognize the gravity of the financial situation facing this nation and indeed the world today. This nation is just starting to emerge from the worst economic recession since the Great Depression. However, with the national unemployment rate still standing at 9% and the unemployment rate for the construction sector at 22.5%, we are far from completing our work. Thanks in part to the foresight of this administration and the courageous actions of the previous Congress, our nation was able to lessen the potential impact of the last recession on hardworking Americans and pull our economy back from the brink. Conservative estimates confirm that, but for the infusion of additional infrastructure investment advocated by this committee for inclusion in the Recovery Act, job losses in the construction sector would have been far worse. As this committee has shown time and time again, investment in our nation's infrastructure does have a significant impact and positive impact on the economy, and it does create jobs. This is why I'm so concerned that the new Republican majority has taken aggressive steps to cut funding for many federal programs with a proven record of providing economic benefits to the nation and for creating jobs. Unfortunately, the Republicans have responded to this nation's economic situation with an axe when a scalpel would seem more appropriate. Just 2 weeks ago, the majority pushed through a stopgap spending bill that decimated several critical infrastructure investment programs and threatens increased job loss and economic uncertainty at an extremely delicate time on the nation's economy. Today's budget hearing title references impacts to jobs and the economy. According to two separate reports from Wall Street analysts, the Republican majority's proposal to cut $61 billion from the current fiscal year budget would decimate broader efforts at job creation throughout the nation and would be taking an unnecessary chance with the ongoing economic recovery. Specifically, these reports highlight how, if enacted as passed by the House, the Republican proposal would result in 400,000 fewer jobs created by the end of fiscal year 2011 and 700,000 fewer jobs by the end of 2012. In addition, news analysis of the report suggests that the proposal would reduce the growth in the gross domestic product by up to 2 percentage points this year, essentially cutting in half the nation's projected economic growth for 2011. Christine Todd Whitman, the Republican EPA administrator under President George W. Bush, estimated that the needs of our nation's aging water infrastructure topped $660 billion. Yet, with the budget of the Environmental Protection Agency, within that budget, the most notable reduction is the $1.4 billion proposed cut to the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, the primary source of federal investment for our nation's wastewater infrastructure. Unfortunately, this proposal marks a clear reversal of recent bipartisan efforts to increase investment in our nation's failing and outdated wastewater infrastructure and on efforts to improve our nation's water quality. In terms of job losses, this cut alone would eliminate over 39,000 direct construction jobs throughout the country and countless additional jobs in the industries and small business that support the wastewater construction industry at a time when many small businesses and the construction sector are struggling to recover. Furthermore, this cut undermines long-standing federal efforts to address our nation's aging infrastructure system. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to include in the record a chart showing the direct state-by-state losses under the Republican majority's proposal to cut the Clean Water State Revolving Fund.
So ordered.
Thank you. I would like to highlight just a few additional programs where the cuts voted on by the majority will have significant adverse impacts on the economy, could result in additional job losses throughout the nation, and place at risk the health of a greater number of families. First, the Republican majority has proposed to cut EPA brownfield site assessment and cleanup grants by 30%. This popular bipartisan program provides valuable seed money to cities and towns throughout the country to restore abandoned or underutilized properties, to promote economic development, and to return commercial properties to local tax rolls. Estimates suggest that the Republican proposal will result in 300 fewer properties being assessed during the current fiscal year, 20 fewer sites being cleaned up, and a potential loss of over 1,500 additional jobs and approximately $300 million in leveraged redevelopment funds. The majority has also proposed to cut EPA's Superfund budget by $32 million. This program, which was created by this committee to clean up the nation's most toxic waste dumps, is critical for protecting public health and the environment for exposure to hazardous substances. While the exact number is not yet known, EPA expects that the Republican proposal to reduce funding for this program will result in fewer cleanups being undertaken, will increase the risk that our communities and families remain exposed to toxic chemicals and substances, and could lead to the layoff of countless cleanup workers. Finally, the majority has voted to pull back on EPA's compliance and enforcement capabilities, making it far more difficult for the agency to identify and pursue serious violations impacting public health and the environment in communities across the nation. According to estimates, the Republicans' continuing resolution could result in the loss of as many as 100 compliance and enforcement personnel, 1,000 fewer inspections across all media, that is to say air, water, wastes, and toxins, and the loss of millions of dollars to the U.S. Treasury from foregone fines, penalties, and settlements from the most egregious violations. In my view, this proposal stands in stark contrast to the agency's effort to increase compliance in critical areas within a limited budget and suggests that a weakened compliance and enforcement presence is somehow better for the nation. These are just a few examples of the potential negative impact of the Republican continuing resolution on our nation's economy and on jobs. Mr. Chairman, as I said earlier, I recognize the challenging economic times facing this nation. In my view, this administration has taken a pragmatic approach to respond to our economic situation, at the same time as prioritizing the programs and policies that preserve its core mission of protecting public health and the environment while reducing air and water pollution. However, in contrast, the administration's efforts stand with respect to the draconian cuts proposed by the Republican majority in the continuing resolution. In my view, as well as a great many respected, non-aligned economists, the cuts proposed by the new majority will result in immediate and significant job losses, will significantly weaken national efforts to emerge from the last recession stronger than before, and will shift the balance from protection of public health to protection of the polluters. In short, these cuts take the nation in the wrong direction at the wrong time. I yield back the balance of my time.